Welcome again to another edition of Richmond Chapter SCLC. And I have a special guest with me today, Reverend Avon King from the Trainham Baptist Church in Halifax County. But he also happens to be an SCLC president. And how you doing today, Rev? How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself? How you making it?
Too blessed to be stressed, Rev. Too blessed to be stressed.
That's good to hear that.
That's good. So, Rev, tell me a question. What is your position with SCLC in Danville and Pennsylvania County?
Well, my positions, I've served in several positions. When I started with SCLC, I was actually we had the Danville chapter, and I was serving on the executive board of the Danville chapter. I went from the Danville chapter to become the state president of Virginia. I went on from that to serve a term as a national board member, and then I returned back to the position of the Danville chapter and the state president.
Awesome. So how long have you been involved with SCLC?
Well, officially, I was marching with them in the early years, but I officially became in SCLC about around, it would have been 88, 83, in that period, somewhere between 83 and 88. Because we actually re-established a chapter in Danville about around 80, in the 80s, somewhere in the 80s, 88, around that time.
Awesome. Well, I had the opportunity to come up and march with you at the Right to Vote March in April 4th, commemorating the passing of Dr. King, and we had an awesome time up there. I appreciate your hospitality. Let me ask you a question. What are some of the important issues facing your community right now?
Well, as you know, number one, of course, we are putting a lot of emphasis on voting. We also, we deal with the extreme amount of violence in the city, of killings. And we are also dealing presently with, in our ministry alliance, along with SCLC members, with maintaining and restoring historical Black communities. We're trying to make sure that the low income and the less fortunate do not lose all of their properties, and that we can upgrade these communities to be registered on the historical register. And,
awesome.
And we have also in our city got majority basically in the council and on the school board, which is a historical accomplishment here, because in the city of Danville in the 1800s, 1883, it was a serious riot, and the Black community lost all of its political power, and it's basically just regained political power in this 21st century, which is very unusual. We finally was able to elect a Black mayor, and we also elected one of the first female mayors. And this city that we're presently working on right now to restore and maintain is called the Almagro community, which some people say that historically the word was meant all Negro, but it was one of the oldest Black communities in Virginia. It had its own stores, its own post office, its own hospital, and also in Danville, as you know, we from the 1900s, we had our own Black bank. And so this is another one of those cities that had been lost in history, like Oklahoma and others, that had the Black Wall Streets.
So, Tulsa, Oklahoma, right.
And so Danville was one also that had, it was a majority Black city until the textile mills came in, and they had a plan to create a all-white community.
Wow.
And the industry that they created only hired whites. Then later they began to hire Blacks in low positions. And one of the historical suits against Dan River Mills was brought in Danville by Julius Adams and the Danville Progressive Association, which was an affiliate of SCLC. And this was organized in 1963. And in this suit was victorious, but when they demonstrated here, they held the charges of some of the demonstrators as late as up in the 70s.
Wow.
So this is what we have been working on, is trying to maintain the political power, and also empower our communities that are less fortunate. That's some of the main areas of our focus today.
Well, as you know, one of our sayings is the struggle continues.
Oh yes, definitely.
It's always a struggle, Rev, no matter how far we think we've come.
Right.
We take 3 steps forward and 4 steps backward.
That's correct. We are in a struggle today that's very unusual, because as I sit here now, we had an incident at one of our high schools. A young man, students had a fight, and they found that one student brought a gun. And what we are having in Virginia, where I am, our high school is rated as one of the lowest SOL schools in the community. So we have been organized. We are working with the superintendent, which president now is an African American, and we're trying to implement reading programs. We're trying to mentor the young men and young ladies. But the students are faced with something I don't think that many of us, especially as we as Christians, have really faced. We're not really facing. I've talked to so many young people who are having mental issues.
Yes, sir.
Because they don't know how to relate with this progressive, what I want to call liberated lifestyle that have came into the schools, that people like me and you, we grew up in a different school atmosphere. We didn't have to deal with the issues that's coming on the ballot, such as whether they should have critical race theory, which does not exist. We didn't have to deal with the issues of which bathroom you go in, or what pronoun you're to be called by. And I think the seniors and the older people do not realize the stress that is bringing on young people who have come from traditional families. Of course, it's progressiveness that we see across this nation. But this traditional family, a lot of stress is being put on the young kids. Many are trying to commit suicide, and they don't know how to express themselves. So a lot of this latching out that we see across in young people, I don't think we have, as a community, have really taken it serious to what we are doing to the next generation. So that's one of the areas we are focusing real hard on now, trying to make sure our young people have the opportunity still to be able to express their freedom as a Christian.
You know, when we were there, you had a young man spoke who was involved in the Right to Vote March. And at some point in time, I would like to interview him again, if you could set that up, because that young man had a lot of answers and had a wisdom beyond his years that could help some of our young people. You know, we're youth empowerment is one of our goals right now. So let me ask you a question. As you speak to youth and everything else, what's going on with voter registration up there in your area? And what do we need to do to better prepare for the coming election in November?
Well, as I stated earlier, we are trying to maintain our council and our school board. We have, like as you mentioned, we have another young man who's running for school board. We have a young lady that's going to run for council. And so what we are doing now is more voter education and voter registration. As you know, in this month, we will have the election coming up. And so we are trying to get information to the people, just simple information as to the days to get registered, how to register by mail.
Early voting, things like that.
Early voting.
Mail-in ballots.
Right, and we have the ballots, and we go over the ballots with people who do not have the knowledge of the ballots, and make sure that they are up on these dates. Because I've found out, we take for granted that people know deadlines. Something simple as registering to vote on the application, it states that you have to have your Social Security number.
Right.
And simple things of that nature sometimes do not reach our people. How you vote.
Right. Education. It's real important.
Right. And we had the opportunity here to have Sunday voting, and a lot of people were not up on that issue. And so it slipped by. So we're going to try to, at some point, maybe revisit that. You know, we're having a lot of people who don't have the knowledge of where they are to vote. They sent out new voter registration cards, and sometimes they'll change the polls. We fought against that bailout, moving the polls and everything. Right. But here in the last few years, they have used very crude ways to move poles. I don't know if you remember around the 9/11 issue, we had poles at the armories. So then they put security on those poles, they moved those poles. Then when they started having trouble at schools, they moved poles out of school. And some were even put in churches. And so that was not our original way we wanted the poles to be moved. Yeah.
Well, Red, what we have to also do is educate people to understand that we do have no excuse absentee voting now.
Right.
That we can vote in Virginia. For instance, I get my ballot mailed to me. And being a senior citizen, I fill my ballot out and I take it to the poll and just hand it in. I don't have to stand in line. I have not stood in line in 3 years. I have not gone to the precinct. I don't even go to my voting precinct. I go to the registrar's office and hand them my ballot and get a little sticker, and then I leave. And then I check that evening to make sure the ballot was processed. But another thing that we're gonna do, and I'm gonna let you wrap this up in a second, but another thing that I was doing research on the fact that we can do voter registration ourselves as long as we go through the training.
That's correct.
And that one good thing about voter registration is if you have a driver's license and you know your social security number, you can do it online. So I could take a laptop and prop ourselves up somewhere with some Wi-Fi and register people. As long as we give them a form and make sure that we follow all the guidelines, there's some on-site voter registration that groups can do. So we need to do some more studying on that. You said something about city council and school board. Are you all having actually city council and school board elections this year in Danville?
Yes, because in the past, our city council was staggered, but when they made all elections in November, 5 of our council people will be up. We have 9-member council.
Okay.
So 5 will be up for re-election, and also in the school board, we will have 5 that will be up for re-election. So, as I said, in right now, our city council is 5-4. And we have a majority of African Americans. One of the first time, we also have an African American mayor.
Yes.
Our mayor president at this time is African American. And we have, like I said, African American school superintendent.
Majority school board, right?
African American, African American vice city manager. So we right now are in a very important time in history to make sure we can do some things. But when you mention about voting, what I'm finding out, just simple things, is that you may be able to drive to a handicapped person to the poll and have the machine brought out to them. It's so much about voting information that only some of us have knowledge of. What we need to do now is have workshops where we can compile this information and make sure that we take time to emphasize this information, such as 17-year-olds can vote before they turn 18 if their 18-year-old birthday is coming.
By November,
all
right.
This. And when you talk about registering people, making sure that when we help people to fill out the balance, that they are filled out correctly. Because one year we had people who were doing their own individual registration, and some of the people had felons and different things of that nature. But a lot of that has changed, because now a lot of people who had felons now are eligible to vote, and we need to get all this information to our people before this election, then to get them out to the polls. That's the number 2, getting them registered, then get them out.
Get them to show up. That's right. That's why I love the absentee ballot.
That's right.
Rev, that's why I love the absentee ballot. Well, look, the last thing is a lot of people don't know, and the reason we're doing this podcast is for just what you said. We're going to be able to put this on social media, and I'm going to make sure you get a copy so you all can put it on social media up in your area, and so that people can hear these things that we're talking about. But the last thing I wanted you to address or let us talk about it is Virginia, for the first time in history, will have same-day voting this year. As of October 1st, a law goes into effect that allows a person who has not registered to actually register at the voting poll and cast a ballot at that time. the ballot will be a provisional ballot pending their voter registration being validated. But my question is that going to help us or hurt us? Because, you know, some of us tend to procrastinate if we know we can, you know, oh, I'm going to wait till I go to the polls and that's when I'm going to register and stuff. So what are your thoughts on that, Rev?
Well, my thoughts, and I've given a lot of consideration, everything that can be done to enhance the opportunity to vote, I think we should try to support it. Yes, right. Because that's what we experienced when we were talking about the mail-in ballots. You know, this last national election, it was a lot of dialogue about stopping it or trying not to count the absentee ballots.
Sure.
But I think the more availability that we offer people to vote, it will increase the participation. And so I'm kind of leaning to the side that if we have our people educated and we have more poll workers, volunteers that can help guide our people, I think if we pick up 5 votes in the elections, and I know you were in Danville when we were talking.
That's
I
right.
was talking about how many people have won elections by 1 vote.
One vote
matters, and we should always remember that 1 vote matters. And preachers should be aware of that too, because in a church meeting, it may be that 1 vote that send you home.
Yeah, I
1
got
vote
you.
matters.
I got you. Well, you brought it home to that preacher thing, Rev, and I appreciate you for that. Look, thank you very much for taking the time out to speak to us here at the Richmond chapter. We're going to work closely with Danville and Pennsylvania County and Halifax and everywhere you are out there. We're going to bring this thing back together. SCLC is on the rise all over. We're going to do what we can do to empower young people, to get people involved. And as the saying goes, the struggle continues. Thank you, Rev.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate your work, and I'm glad you bringing some light to SCLC and keeping us our light shining. And it's definitely a necessity for us to branch out, and we are more relevant now than ever. All the issues that Dr. King and the SCLC was fighting in the 60s, they are right before us.
Right in front of us, just like it was back in 57, all the way up through the 60s, man, when, you know, people trying their best to, as the saying goes, the struggle continues. Rev, thank you very much for your time.
Keep up the good work, and
all right.
God be with you, brother.
Oh, God bless you too. Thank you.
All right.